Did Jesus Christ claim to be God? Let me clarify. The question is not whether in the New Testament does it present Jesus as God, but rather, where does Jesus Christ for himself out of his own mouth make this claim? And if he does make this claim, where does it happen? And how early can we date it? Now, there are skeptics who say very confidently that Jesus never made this claim. Sure, the authors of the New Testament present Jesus as God, but Jesus never makes this claim for himself. Now, most Christians will quote passages like John 8:58, John 10:30, John 14:9, where Jesus says, "Before Abraham was, I am, the Father and I are one, and if you have seen me, you have seen the Father." Christians will say, "See, here Jesus is clearly claiming divinity." But the problem is all of these verses come from the Gospel of John, which according to scholars is the last gospel written. Skeptics will also say that there are other ways to interpret these passages to where Jesus isn't actually claiming divinity. They go on to say Jesus' audience didn't understand him. So where in Mark, Matthew, and Luke does Jesus claim to be God? The skeptic, atheist, agnostic Bart Ehrman says,
I am firmly convinced that Jesus never talked about himself as God. And one way to demonstrate that is to line up our sources of information about Jesus chronologically. And so I mentioned earlier that we have the first three Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. These are called the Synoptic Gospels because they agree in so many places in their which stories they tell, the sequence of the stories, even word for word, verbatim agreements, that everybody pretty much agrees that there's some copying going on. Somebody's copying somebody. Scholars who've worked on this since the 19th century have said that Matthew and Luke both had Mark as one of their sources. So you had Mark as a source. Matthew and Luke copied Mark, but Matthew and Luke have a number of sayings of Jesus not found in Mark. And so most scholars today continue to think that Matthew and Luke had access to some other written source of information that they call Q. Mm-hmm. Q is a group of Jesus sayings that Matthew and Luke had access to. Matthew has some materials not found in Mark or Luke, so they say, well, that came from some other sources, and Luke has some material not found in Mark and Luke, so that's other sources. Okay, so you got Matthew, Mark, and Luke, but you also have Q and M, Matthew special sources, and L, Luke special sources. If you look at all of that material, Matthew, Mark, Luke, Q, M, and L, okay, all of that together, Jesus never calls himself God. All of our earliest sources. Where Jesus starts calling himself God is the Gospel of John, yes, our last source. And so, to my thinking, you have these sources of information about Jesus. So I've just laid out six sources, 6 pieces of information versus 1. The 6 are all earlier than the 1. It seems to me completely implausible that 6 authors would describe the sayings of Jesus knowing that he called himself God and neglect to mention that part. Like that bit just isn't important enough to bring up. And so I think it's completely implausible.
People might be surprised.
And we have popular skeptic agnostic Alex O'Connor say,
the Christ doesn't claim to ever be God.
That's what I think, and that's controversial too. Amongst Christians, if you say Jesus never even claimed to be God, even in the Gospels, they'll look at you like you've said a triangle has 4 sides. Mm-hmm. In biblical scholarship, this has been a very mainstream opinion for the past few hundred years.
And why do you believe that?
Because there's no instance in the Gospels where I think Jesus is claiming to be God. Christians think that they have examples, but I think that all of them don't actually apply.
So according to these skeptics, nowhere in the earliest sources does Jesus make the claim to be God. But is that really the case? Let's look at our earliest source, the Gospel of Mark. Now, the Gospel of Mark climaxes with Jesus being arrested and presented to the high priest and council, where the high priest asks Jesus, "Are you the Christ, the Son of the Blessed?" And Jesus replies, "I am, and you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power and coming with the clouds of heaven." To which the high priest tears his garments and says, "What further witness do we need? You have heard his blasphemy, and what is your decision?" And they all condemned him as deserving death. What just happened? Why are they accusing Jesus of blasphemy to the point of deserving death? There's nothing blasphemous in claiming to be the Messiah, so what then is the blasphemy charged for? Jesus is identifying himself as the Son of Man, and he's specifically quoting the prophet Daniel chapter 7 verse 13, where Daniel writes, "I was watching in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man coming with the clouds of heaven. He came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. Then to him was given dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom the one which shall not be destroyed." In the Old Testament, God alone comes with the clouds of heaven. Psalm 104:3 says, "He makes the clouds his chariots." This Son of Man is coming in a way that only God alone comes, and to him all peoples, nations, and languages will serve him. The word serve is the word literuo, which appears over 130 times in the Old and New Testament, and it is only given to God alone, except here where the Son of Man is given the service due only to God alone. What we have in Daniel's vision is two divine figures, and Jesus is saying, "Remember that divine Son of Man? That's me." But it doesn't end there. Jesus said, "You will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power." He's quoting Psalm 110:1. It says, "The Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand, and I will make your enemies a footstool for your feet." Understand what's happening here. When God says, "Sit at my right hand," in that Semitic context, it means rule the universe with me. You are my heir. God never shares his glory, kingdom, or throne to anyone, yet that's exactly what's happening here. Jesus identifying himself as the Son of Man is found in every gospel, including Q. So did Jesus claim to be God? Yes, he did. So much so that the high priest accused him of blasphemy and condemned him to death. Hello everyone, my name is Edgar. Welcome to my channel. If you've made it this far, I thank you for watching the video. It would mean the world to me if you subscribed, liked, or commented. This channel is focused on glorifying God and bridging faith and reason together. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.